seconds away on Studio 5.
Never say die.
Vanessa Williams reveals a return to the recording studio.
Now I see why you wanted to be alone.
And shares the heart of her latest acting role. Plus,
I'm the spear, no the arrow that shoots through history to advance the centuries of my people's miseries. Whoa!
behind the scenes of the powerful documentary, Romeo is Bleeding, with a hip-hop and spoken word pioneer.
I'll start with you because you are sent this film, and I understand you loved it immediately. What was it about the film?
Also ahead.
Like, I didn't know that you're not allowed to say after you do communion.
Comedian Allison Moore serves up the funny in Studio 5, starting now. And welcome to Studio 5. We're getting to those stories in just a bit, but let's get started with your weekly countdown of the 5 most uplifting headlines in the world of entertainment news. Here are the first 2. At number 5.
Jordan face back, swoosh, and that's the game!
Funny man Jim Carrey delivers an inspiring message.
And I want to speak to the fact that I believe that this room is filled with God. And that you are heroes to me, and I admire you.
Addressing a room full of former inmates here at Homeboy Industries, a Los Angeles-based organization that provides support and jobs to former prisoners and gang members.
And ultimately, I believe that suffering leads to salvation.
At number 4.
She was our mum. She still is our mum. You know, like, of course, as a son, I would say that she's the best mum in the world.
Prince William and Prince Harry open up about their mother in a new TV documentary, Diana, Our Mother, Her Life and Legacy. The film's director says the princes were eager to celebrate her life, going through photo albums that had been shut for 20 years after she was killed in a Paris car accident. The future King of England was only 15 at the time. Prince Harry, 12.
You and I are both in this photograph. You're in the tummy.
This is the first time that the two of us have ever spoken about her as a mother.
She was very informal and really enjoyed the laughter and the fun.
She was one of the naughtiest parents.
That's a look at number 5 and number 4 in the countdown. Number 3 is just moments away. Vanessa Williams is a singer, actress, dancer, author, and producer. She's also a living example of the Maya Angelou poem, And Still I Rise. She joins us via satellite in just a moment to talk about her latest project. But first, this introduction to this week's Studio 5 interview.
Cecile tells me you're a real estate developer?
Vanessa Williams is more than a triple threat. The star of the Broadway stage, television, and screen is also a singer, author, fashion designer, and mother of 4.
Our new Miss America is Vanessa Williams, Miss New York.
She initially gained recognition as the first African American to win the Miss America title more than 30 years ago. But scandal forced her to return the crown, with only weeks left in her reign.
My parents were there for me, and that's exactly what, they didn't cast judgment, they didn't say, what a loser, they said, okay, well, we love you, and we'll get through this.
With that love, Vanessa's life and career have been a steady rise.
Never say die.
Her latest acting role is a talk show host in the series Daytime Divas.
Maxine, you're the most alpha woman out there. That's why I wrote about you in my book.
You did? You did. It's beyond flattering.
Vanessa, what is it that attracted you to this very interesting and unique character?
Well, it's actually Maxine Robinson, and Star Jones is, she actually named my character after Max Robinson, who was the first African-American anchor on ABC TV back in the day. So it was a kind of tribute to him, but it's also the fact that she wrote it when she was recovering from heart surgery. The doctor told her she was going to lose some brain cells, obviously when her heart was out of her body, and they wanted to make sure that she exercises her mind for her memory. So she ended up writing what she knew, and she wrote a fictitious book about a daytime talk show. And this is based on her novel called Satan's Sisters. So the name of our talk show is called The Lunch Hour. I play Maxine Robinson, who is the producer and star and creator of the show. And she has 4 co-hosts that she works with on a daily basis. One is an evangelist. One is a young Pulitzer Prize winning journalist.
Right.
One is a child star who is now dealing with sobriety issues. And you kind of work through what people know as their reality, but what we bring is the drama to our own reality on The Lunch Hour.
I tell you, the drama. I love even the very beginning where we find you in the hospital in a supposed coma for a little bit. But also, the heart of your character, you really seem to have a taking to one of your co-hosts who's struggling. What is it you think that attracts Maxine to that particular character?
Well, I think because Maxine never had children, she has a son who she's adopted, Sean, who already has one of our Pulitzer Prize co-hosts pregnant, who also is married to somebody who's running for Senate. So that's one drama in itself. But I think that because she doesn't have children that she actually gave birth to, she has an affinity to be a mentor. And I think for some reason, she feels sorry and she feels very protective of the character Kibby, who is played by Chloe Bridges, who, was a child star, is really trying to make it in her 20s in the world and struggling with dependency on drugs and alcohol. I mean, these are all things that we've seen play out in other people that we really know on, in the media. And I think we can address them and show kind of the reality of the struggle of disappointing people, trying to hold on to your job because you have to, but you need to as well.
I know right before this interview began, my stage manager tells me that I saw Vanessa Williams last year in Richmond at the Jazz Festival. I was like, what was she doing there? You do so much, I forget. Woo. You are a singer. Any new music coming from you?
I would like to get in the studio and start some new music. It's one of those things, I'll get to it, and then I get sidetracked. But I promise I've got to do it within the next, by year's end, I'm going to work on something, I promise.
All right, so you heard it first here on Studio 5. Vanessa Williams is getting in the studio before the end of the year. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all the work that you do. You are a true inspiration.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Still ahead on Studio 5.
I'm the spear, no the arrow.
Dante Clark uses writing and poetry to rise above a deadly turf war in Richmond, California. His story now the subject of a powerful documentary with Russell Simmons behind it.
It's a way to get the voiceless to say something, everybody hear it. And it's a way to get the voices to hear themselves.
And welcome back. It is time to get back to the countdown of the best in uplifting entertainment news. Here's number 3.
At number 3.
Say nothing, take 3.
Disney announces the cast for its upcoming live-action adaptation of Aladdin. And along with Will Smith in the role of Genie is Naomi Scott as Princess Jasmine.
Staring at you, you're staring at me. There's so many things I'd like to say to you.
Scott may be best known for playing the Pink Power Ranger, but she's also a recording artist and worship leader.
When the time comes, with the seasons.
Who shared her faith and prayers for persecuted Christians on social media. At number 2. We've seen Justin Bieber rocking out to Hillsong Young and Free, recently posting their single, Falling Into You, as his favorite song. We mentioned mentioned it to the band members who paid Studio 5 a visit on their American leg of their youth revival tour.
How does it feel to have someone like that really just champion the music that you're putting out?
I think it's really cool that someone as influential as him is making a stand for Jesus. And the fact that he is listening to worship music and can use his platform to get the message out there about Jesus and who he is and what he's done is just an honor.
And that leaves only one more in this week's countdown. We'll get to it in just a moment. And this next story will make it well worth the wait. Russell Simmons is a pioneer in the hip-hop world. He also helped to make poetry cool. Simmons is now behind a masterful documentary about the life of a young poet who used his writing and even Shakespeare to touch young people and curb gang violence in Richmond, California. Here's your first look at Romeo is Bleeding.
So, straight out of raw talent, my man from Richmond, California. Make some noise for Dante Clark!
I like to think about the times when my pops was in jail and moms didn't know how we was gonna eat. Until you understand me, please find me guilty.
Poet Dante Clark is the center of this masterful documentary.
I'm the spear, no the arrow that shoots through history to advance the centuries of my people's miseries. Whoa, I'm the dream of Dr. King. No, I'm the flame under the pot, the powder cooking, the rock that's chopped and served on the block to the fiends. I'm too dope. Whoa, hold up. Well, you tell me who I'm supposed to be.
Jason Zeldez directs the film.
What was it that drew you to this story?
Short answer is Dante. Dante is just one of my favorite artists, point blank, period. Having access to one of my favorite artists when they're just at the beginning of their journey, it's incredible opportunity as a filmmaker.
Over the years, I started, reading more, getting more invested into different forms of writing. And then, Romeo and Juliet came back around. And when I read it, it's like, that's me. That's my life. That's our life. We finna take a Shakespearean play, rewrite it, and make it fit Richmond.
It was a 5-year journey making Romeo is Bleeding, a journey that touched hip-hop legend and spoken word enthusiast Russell Simmons, the film's executive producer.
I look at poetry as one of the better angels in hip-hop. Although all of it is great, expressive, and innovative, this particular thing appeals to me, as a way, silence is golden, music is great, but silence, operating from silence, that's a really beautiful thing. And, you get to say things that may be a little deeper than you might say if the music was playing. We were both inspired by the same poet to do spoken word, to produce it for me, and to be a spoken word artist for him. It was Black Ice. So, we both see, this transformative property, this thing that really speaks right to the core of hip hop. And speaks broad to everyone. It's a way to get the voiceless to say something, and everybody hear it. And it's a way to get the voices to hear themselves.
My little brother was headed that way, man. It was really easy for him to be a thug. It's in him, it ain't on him. It's not on him, it's in his bloodline to be that.
I got 8 brothers and sisters. Not too many of us graduated high school, especially my brothers, because all of them was in the streets and in jail.
My pops used to talk to me then. He ended up going to jail. I was probably like about 10, 11. Everybody going to school, new shoes, and I had to have me some too, so selling crack, 10, 11.
Dante, you say something at the very start of the film, or very close to it. Violence is not going to stop. This is beyond flesh. It's spiritual. Can you speak to that? What drove that statement?
Growing up in a violent community, consuming culture that was violent as far as the rappers that I listened to, as far as the movies that I watched, and understanding that this is not just entertainment because it's happening in my living room, in my kitchen, outside in my front yard, backyard. So it's like, oh, this is what it is. And then once I was pursuing to be that, and then I was like, nah, I think I want to do something different. I'm gonna write to uplift my community. I want to stop violence. I want to stop the violence in my community. And then I realized the more I researched and read, I'm like, violence has been around since the beginning. It's always wars of different communities for whatever reason. I'm like, dang, violence is bigger than just, I can say I want to stop gun violence, but violence is in all different types. It's the words that you speak to somebody that's very violent. By telling somebody that you're stupid or you're not worth anything, that's a violent act. So what I meant by that is, oh, if we are spiritual beings, it's more than just what I do to you physically, it's how I think about you mentally. It's what I feel about myself spiritually.
The division of North and Central as far as the lines were concerned has been pretty much forever.
Do you know how y'all ended up in Richmond?
When everybody came from the South, we came to work on them shipyards, man.
When we was free but still seen as niggas 1940s, hoping to find jobs in Kaiser shipyards, they let us work with them, but we couldn't live side by side. We rested on the outskirts of Richmond, never allowed to live in this town because white people needed their space. We was ignored.
Even though there wasn't the sense of racism the way it was in the South, there was still definitely a sense of separation and a difference. So, you know, North was them tracks. That's where they put the colored folks.
When I talk to people like yourself who rise above so much difficult circumstances, I'm often told there's someone in their family, usually a praying grandmother, who sort of, you know, travailed for this to be born. Is that true in your case? Is there someone who was pushing and praying that something would happen?
My mama, she did a lot to make sure that we was taken care of. Enrolled me into an after-school program called Making Waves. It was a tutorial program that'll prep you for college. They take you in 5th grade, see you through the 12th, and if you graduate in good standing, put you on a scholarship. She enrolled me, my brother, and my sister in that program. Really wanted us to do well, to stay as far away from the streets as possible, but she knew that we were surrounded by my moms, praying moms.
Dante has a spoken word for us a little later in the show. Romeo is Bleeding is in American theaters as of July 28th. It will also be available later on digital platforms. Trust me, this is a must-see. Up next on Studio 5.
When we grew up, we didn't watch comedy in our house. So, you know, like some of the comedians were just way too much for Mom. So she like, man.
It's time for a dose of laughter.
So he invites me to church and I start doing all kinds of things wrong. Because I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that you're not allowed to say after you do communion.
With comedian Allison Moore. Well, the wait is now over. Here is number 1 in the countdown of what's new and now in the world of uplifting entertainment news. At number 1.
I don't know if I take any more orders, but I'd sure like to get up on the pulpit, sound off with all those sergeants out in the congregation. I'd sure give them hellfire and brimstone.
Studio 5 has shared the salvation story of Hollywood icon Steve McQueen.
So we tracked him down and I said, "Are you the Leonard DeWitt that prayed with Steve McQueen?" And he said, "Yes, I am." I was amazed that Leonard didn't have like a website, The Preacher Who Led McQueen to Christ. I mean, that's kind of an accomplishment.
That conversation is part of Pastor Greg Laurie's new film on the Queen. And he's giving Studio 5 this exclusive first look.
Every Sunday we went to church, which I think that was just Steve's way. He wanted to make sure that he had all his questions answered.
I said each one of us is different.
Yeah.
But God has a tailor-made plan for each of us. And he grinned, he said, "You want to know if I'm born again, don't you?" And so then he said, "Remember the Sunday that you invited people who wanted to receive Christ? When you gave that invitation," he said, "that's when I accepted Christ."
Steve McQueen, American Icon, is in theaters September 28th.
Laughter is indeed medicine, and it's time now to get your daily dose. Studio 5 is serving it up with wife, mother, and comedian Allison Moore.
Like, I didn't know that you're not allowed to say after you do communion. I didn't know. They didn't tell me.
Now, you're a comedian, but you didn't always want to be a comedian. How did this all happen for you?
Right. So I didn't even know
that there was a comedian trapped inside of me.
Oh, really?
Now, I used to get in trouble all the time in school, but, you know, just thinking that they were hating on my skills. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was doing this nonprofit event, and I hosted the event because I've always been very comfortable talking in front of people. I didn't know it was a thing, right? And so the comedian there, he's like, I don't know why you all got me. Allison's a comedian.
Wow.
So I'm like, can I get paid?
What was Allison's dream for Allison? What did you think you were going to do?
Well, when I was a little kid, I did think I was going to be an entertainer. But I kind of thought I was going to be a singer. The problem is my voice didn't think so. I got married, I had children, so then my dream became, let's put these little kiddies through college. And I started working in human resources, and it was just in my own little world.
Okay. I'm trying to picture you in HR.
Yeah, So a girlfriend of mine, we used to say, well, when we become millionaires, we're going to have a homeless shelter. Girl, we're going to take care of the orphans. And the Lord said so clear one day, well, why don't you show me what you're going to do with the hundreds of dollars before I give you the millions? We're like, oh.
Oops.
So we're like, okay, we'll bet. And that's where we did this little nonprofit fundraiser event. We raised money. We're like, we're going to give 100% of the money away. And that's where we had that gala.
Wow.
We hired the comedian, and he was like, well, no, she was the... So I really think that because I said, okay, you know what, Lord, we're going to do what you said, dude, that he just kind of allowed that moment to be the moment. This is what happens when you serve me.
Where do you find your material? What do you do?
It's completely observational. Like, it is just absolutely what happens, and it cycles through my brain. My mother passed away. So I have a really popular bit about just going through the whole funeral, the expenses of the funeral. Oh my God, that's...
You find humor.
All the responsibility was on me. The problem with that is I don't even know how to spell responsibility. We call the funeral home or the life insurance place, policy place, whatever, at like 9. And they're like, you have $746 coming to you. Because I'm looking like, oh my gosh. I said to the funeral director, I said, this is how much a casket costs? Do y'all price match? And I just like start freaking out. Oh my God. Can I get the box that came in? Because it's the same shape.
It's funny now.
It is,
Not
yeah.
funny then.
And it gives me opportunity to really minister, because then I'm like, well, the God of comfort is really available for you.
Now, to catch more of Allison's humor, find her on social media. She is sure to keep you laughing. And still to come on Studio 5.
Half kingdom, half slave, half some pride, no, half shame, half freedom, half change.
Dante Clark is back to take the mic for a Studio 5 session in spoken word.
Well, we are almost out of time for today's show, so let's look ahead to what's happening next week.
On July 23rd, 1967, Detroit was hit by a riot.
It's been 50 years since a police raid led to one of the largest race riots in Detroit in 1967.
Oh man, look at my house back there. I ain't got no house.
This painful period of America's history is the focus of a major motion picture.
You don't talk about this to anyone ever. You understand?
The film really takes us there.
Now let's not be stupid in this situation. You need to tell me where the gun is. I got all night, people.
Did you find yourselves breaking down, or?
Oh my gosh, yes. Every time they said cut, I just was going in the room, just cry. I had my brothers go in there, we all just, they'd pray over me. We'll all pray together, we'll just sing, just have fun, just to get out of that feeling for a while, because we were on that wall for for days.
And that is just one story from next week's rundown. As for this week, and as promised, poet Dante Clark has our final word with this week's spoken word.
As the morning dew glazes across cracked bottles and torn plastic and uncultivated soil, in a crammed space rumbles an appetite deep inside Section 8 housing beneath a rusted ceiling where iron tears in a quivering pit bellows off the cliff's notes. So here lies a brown boy who awakes to a molding frost setting into his bones the third morning this week. He struggled to climb out from his weeping puddle, search through rubble for watered ground to plant his weary feet. It'd be the pieces of watching your best friend head explode in front of you. The sight, mind-blowing to say the least, don't you think? With scrawny shoulders and sinking faith, this brown boy carries 17 caskets and unfinished homework on his back as he drags himself through a thick cloud of purple smoke to stagger down a condemned pathway to the end of your classroom, cuffed in a black hooded sweatshirt made obituary there in the corners where he fold, crumble at each tick of that clock, knowing that in here or out there on that block we waste, where the living usually forgets about the dead. And is that why these teachers don't see us? If metallic locks and slave ships be the only things planned in your lessons, then how can you free us, huh? How can you reach us with firm grip if your hands are full from holding on to Eurocentric lectures? They treat us absent when they don't feel connected to our presence, huh? Can't call on raised hands of ghosts, so we float. Hallway glide to daunt at locker room gatherings for a post. We host school grounds as purgatory. We pretend that diploma will exempt us from a white man's gun. Street sweep this poverty and teach me back my native tongue. Like really though, like really know the people you're supposed to be serving. Or is it that you do know and you are afraid of our awakening?
The words and heart of Dante Clark. Now that is a powerful final word. Be sure to see more from Dante in the masterful documentary, Romeo is Bleeding. Until next time, reach out and touch me at Ephraim Graham on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. And then you be sure to come on back so you can see where Studio 5 takes you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.